Before we jump in, I just want to put a little bit of a disclaimer. If you're listening to this with your kids in the room or you're on a road trip, maybe just pause it, pick it up for when maybe your kids aren't around. We're going to be talking, we're going to be throwing around some words, and we're going to be getting spicy today, okay? Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement of men who refuse to settle for less in our families, our focus, and our future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. And I'm your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you have chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time with me today. Now let's get into it. Well, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast for another great episode. And today we have Alex Grendi, which is a certified sex coach who specializes in helping men overcome performance anxiety in the bedroom in the form of premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. All right, I just jumped straight in there. But listen, Alex, I just want to say I'm so grateful to have you on the show today and looking forward to having this conversation, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Can't wait.
Well, tell us, the age-old question is, tell us how you got into this, man, because I'm sure, when you were graduating kindergarten or graduating grade 6, you probably didn't be like, yeah, I'm going to be a sex coach when I am a man, when I grow up, So tell us, man, a little bit about your story real quick. Like what got you into this space?
Yeah, it's a long story, and a very windy road for sure. But I want to help you understand where this comes from for me. So I'll kind of jump around. I come from a very sex-positive family. My parents very openly talked about, my dad in particular, spoke about the fact that my parents had a really healthy sex life. When I was too young, I would say, I was exposed to that. My brother is 5 years older than me, so it was the case where my parents or my dad would say that they had a healthy sex life, and my brother and I would be like head in our hands, just embarrassed, right? And that was just normal for me. It was like, I know my parents have sex, and that maybe other parents in the neighborhood weren't having that much sex. So immediately, I was taught that sex is a really important part of a relationship. So that's like square one. To me, talking about sex was normal. That was just my family life. So then when I started to get a little bit older and I was in middle school and high school and thinking about having sex and being sexually active, that's when things shifted. It was like, oh, this thing that I'm comfortable talking about, that's one thing, but then actually doing it, that was terrifying to me. So immediately before I was ever sexually active, I already had some form of performance anxiety of like, well, what if this goes horribly wrong? What if I'm like the laughing stock of the school? So that it started from square one for me. And performance anxiety and the fear of not being good enough in bed persisted for me from the first time I was sexually active and for the next, 10, 15 years. So that was always part of my sexual experience. And yeah, the main kind of catalyst here was sobriety for me. So I used to be someone who smoked a lot and was always high, always had an excuse for why something didn't go wrong. And as soon as I was sober, it was like, whoa, I didn't realize how big of a problem I had. I'd been hiding this insecurity. So that led me down this whole path of self-exploration and learning about sexuality and how I could move my sexual energy. And I tried reading all these books and doing it on my own, but I wasn't really seeing any success. And it wasn't until I worked with a sex coach that everything became clear to me. So that was my big defining moment. Is I actually learned what a sex coach was because I had never heard of that before. One of my friends was like, "Oh, I'm working with a sex coach." I was like, "What is that?" I want to know what that is. Started doing my research and worked with a bunch. I was like, I want to work with all of these people. What are they teaching? What do they know that I don't know? And it was like almost instantly where I was like, I thought I knew a lot about sex, and I was like, wow, I knew nothing. And something that was once, my biggest weakness became my biggest strength. And that was a life-changing experience for me. And I was like, oh, I want to share this with every man who is going through the same thing as me.
Wow, that's so cool. And how long have you been doing this, man?
It's been 6 years now.
Wow, cool. Well, that's incredible. And so, well, I just want to say, man, thank you for being honest and open about your journey. I know just in my work, it's such a big challenge, intimacy in relationships, and so many men and women and marriages, they're just not comfortable talking about it. It's like a dirty secret, and so there's a lot of suffering and silence going on, and so I appreciate the work you're doing, man. I'm looking forward to just really talking a little bit more about peeling back the layers, if you will.
Yeah.
So tell me, man, like in your experience with this, where do you see things go wrong? Like so for example, let me play this out. You get married and, some people struggle from the beginning, but, a lot of my clients, for example, or a lot of the listeners might also agree with like when they first got married or when they first got in a relationship, intimacy was no problem. It was great, and then over time, the intimacy sort of faded and, or there was just insecurities that creeped up, and before you know it, it's this a bit of a minefield, the issue of sex, and it's like, well, I step here, how do you see that happening in marriages, or relationships where it goes wrong? Does that make sense? I know it's a big question.
Yeah. There's a lot of different factors that can come up, but I think one thing that can happen, that's very common and kind of people don't realize and this sounds like a strong word, but I'm going to say entitlement in sex, in a relationship, where it's like, well, we're married, so there is some certain allotment of sex that's afforded to me, right? It's like, hey, well, we're a couple and we should have sex X times a month or per week, right? But maybe you're not connecting that much. Maybe there's a new baby or maybe a different job and maybe there's a lot of stress and there hasn't been the connection needed to actually have a good sexual experience. So then it's like, hey, it's been a while, and one partner kind of taps the other, and they're not in the mood. And they're like, all right, fine. And they have sex in a way that's like allowing instead of, yes, I want you and you want me. It's this like, yeah, sure, like go ahead. And then there's like one partner who has kind of an unwilling participant who's just like, yeah, sure. And the other is, then having sex with someone who doesn't really want to be there. And what I see often is when you have that kind of experience where someone's kind of taking one for the team and having sex for the other person, it really devalues the experience. So over time, let's just say that happens 3 times in a row. You're the initiator, like, I don't really want to have sex that way. That person doesn't really want to have sex that way. So that like fiery excitement of like, we really want each other is now like, well, our sex isn't very good. So I don't really want you anymore.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Entitlement. Yeah. It's a great point. So, well, let's talk a little bit about that then. So what are common mistakes you see, guys making, or, maybe they've felt entitled, or whatever. They're in that situation where now it's kind of like dull and bland, and sex is no longer an opportunity, but maybe an obligation. What ideas would you have to give them, or like just some first steps of like, hey, consider this, to kind of infuse some fire into the relationship, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's two things that come to mind. Like, if you want to flip that, coming from like a place where it feels entitled, like, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is like, put in way more effort, like earn having sex with your partner, court her into wanting you, not just like, hey, we're married, this is part of it, do your chore. It's like, no way, you still have to earn sex in a relationship. I truly believe that. So to me, there's like one thing in particular that would be like, oh my God moment, and this happens all the time in my program and when I work with men, is like, when was the last time as a husband or a partner you created a night of pleasure that was just for your partner? She's not allowed to touch you. It's not leading to sex. It's literally just about her pleasure. So that would be like my first step, is like, show her how much you care about just giving her love. And pleasure is a great way to do that. But, setting up a night where you said, hey, Thursday night between 6 and 8, I got a babysitter, like, you're mine. I have everything set up, like surprising her, giving her a massage, and then leading into this kind of pleasure experience. That would be one way to like, holy shit, like, show you really care about her pleasure and her needs, and that sex isn't about just getting off.
Yeah, that's good. I think one of the questions, so I have a PDF that I give out as 50 of my favorite questions to connect deeply and spark intimacy. And one of the questions is, could you explain the perfect day from beginning to end to me? And this is just a question to ask to make conversation when you're hanging out. But I tell guys all the time, I'm like, take notes, when she answers that question, because she's giving you a blueprint. She's telling you her dream day, her perfect day, from the moment she wakes up to the moment she goes to bed. Now, of course, I don't think you're saying you have to do that, but that gives you a lot of content, if you want to plan an evening or, morning or afternoon or whatever. Well, that's awesome. I love that. Now, can we talk a little bit about, because I know in your bio you specifically mentioned like premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction, and this is something again that I think even more so people, they may talk about the fact that they don't have a great sex life. Guys might get up the courage to do that, but they're definitely not going into a conversation and be like, hey guys, I premature ejaculate. You know what I mean? And they're not, crushing a couple beers with their buddies and being like, yeah, I struggle with ED, And so I guess let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe let's start with the premature ejaculation. Like what kind of work do you do with guys to help with that?
Yeah, well, part of gaining this awareness and like letting men know that it's okay to talk about it is being able to speak about it on podcasts like this. So I really appreciate you opening up the space for that a guy could watch this and go, oh yeah, I have that. Like, I can get help for this. So yeah, I really appreciate that. But first step is actually identifying and being kind of humble enough to be like, this is a real problem. Like, I need to talk about this. So whether that's speaking about it with your partner, because that can be such a huge barrier of shutdown, is it keeps happening. You both know it's happening, but you're never actually addressing it. So that is a huge first step, is being able to just admit that it's going on and that you want to fix it.
Yeah. And what would you like? What would you define? I know, because I'm always like, what's the spectrum here? You know, like how would
Yeah.
you define premature ejaculation for guys listening? Because I know like 100% of the guys who are listening is gonna be like, is that me? How do I know? You know what? How do you define that, or what's that? What, you know what I mean? Is there a spectrum there, or what? Hey, brother, if you are listening to this show, you've most likely built a successful career. You handle pressure, you lead teams, and you get results. But when was the last time you really connected with your wife beyond the calendar, the kids, and the to-do list? Well, if that sounds like you, I have a free gift for you today called the Connection Code, which are 50 questions to break the silence, spark the fun, and bring the fire back. These questions are going to help you learn what she truly desires from you, to break out of the routine and to rediscover fun, and to spark deeper passion and connection without forcing awkward conversations. Listen, most men assume their wives feel loved, but the best husbands ask great questions and keep the connection alive. So if your date nights feel more like board meetings, and if you've gone from soulmates to roommates, and I want you to download this connection code for free and start the kind of conversations that bring you closer tonight. You can grab your copy at dadnationcode.com/code or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, let's get back into it.
So there is no like clear-cut definition. There are like medical descriptions and definitions that they vary depending on the country, but it's somewhat of if you can't last more than 1 minute of vaginal penetration or 2 minutes, depending on where you look. But yeah, when you're ejaculating before you intend to, and it's like completely out of control. And another factor for defining it is that you're not happy with it. So if it's causing you or your partner distress, then that also helps clarify that it is premature ejaculation, is you're not okay with it. Now, my personal definition is very similar, but it doesn't really matter the amount of time. It's if you ejaculate before you intend to and you're still upset about it. So if you go 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and your partner's close to orgasm and you're like, no, 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 and then you ejaculate before you want to, that would be considered a premature ejaculation to me, although obviously not nearly as severe as not lasting 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of articulating it and defining it. And and if you're listening to this, on the show, and you are struggling with any of these things, then I'm going to be sharing all of Alex's information, and I would love for you to reach out to him. He's got great programs, and the guys, I don't know if it's the algorithm or what, but the second I started following you, I'm seeing you everywhere, man. So, but love his stuff, and we'll share all of his links at the end of the episode in the case you want to reach out. Okay, so let's talk about ED, because I've been on a bit of a journey myself with like the low testosterone, for example, and the guys listening would know that, because I had a male hormone expert on the show a few months ago, Mark Holman, which I feel like you guys would probably have some great conversations. And we talked about the testosterone crisis, in men. And, there was a part of that conversation was, how low testosterone affects libido and ED and all those things. And so let's talk about that for a second. Like, what are some common causes of ED? And you know what I mean? And let's talk about that, and we'll talk about maybe some remedies after.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like when I work with someone, whether it's for PE or ED, it's because it's from performance anxiety. It's not because they're older or because they're out of shape or they have low T. Like, those are not the people that I would typically work with. It's someone who's fit and healthy and is like, I don't understand, why is this happening to me? So the men that I'm working with who experience ED specifically, they're afraid they're not going to be able to get it up. And that has happened before. It's been completely embarrassing. And now they're stuck in their head, terrified that it will happen again. And there's a number of different reasons as to why that happens, but yeah, that depends on each person. And I'd love to go into that more because it's something that I see all the time. And when I point it out, men are like, oh, yeah, I didn't realize I was doing that. And what I'm talking about is so many men that I work with who have ED and who are healthy and young, considering they have such unrealistic expectations of their penis and their erections.
Mm.
So I'll talk to a guy who has ED and he's like, well, if I'm like, start kissing my partner and she touches my leg and I'm not hard, I'm freaking out. Like I should be hard. When I was 18, that would make me hard. Why aren't I hard now? And then he spirals and he's completely in his head and can't perform. Or another man telling me like, yeah, if I'm not hard within the first 3 minutes of like a sexual interaction, I'm like, who gave you these guidelines? Who said you have to be hard when a woman kisses you or a woman's naked in front of you? You know, there's so many of these just, yeah, unrealistic expectations. I don't know where we get them from porn or from movies or whatever, but that like this myth that men should be instantly hard when sex is on the table. And it's like, that's not my experience at all. I don't experience any ED right now, but I also don't get into bed with a woman and go, where's my erection? You know, and start freak out about it.
Oh man, I think we found our hook. I'd love to dig into this, man, because I think there's so much to unpack there. I'm even just thinking about conversations I've had, and even myself, I'm like, yeah, where do I get these expectations from? These embedded expectations, if you will, of like, well, it should look this way, it should feel this way, it should respond this way, and if it doesn't, I'm broken. And then I could see what you mean, like how men probably get stuck in this cycle of, well, now I'm getting, like the first time they have performance anxiety, and now they're getting anxious about getting performance anxiety, and that causes performance issues. And before you know it, the whole thing, like the second you start kissing, it's like you're stressed, right? You're anxious. So yeah, man, let's unpack that a little bit more. It's just very interesting. What I just feel like you're like a spin top, and I just want to like pull your string and let you go, kind of thing. So talk to me a little bit more about that, man. Like where do you think we get those expectations from?
I think it's just culture. It's like we see movie scenes around sex are like 30 seconds long, and they just like rip off their clothes. They're hard, whatever. You don't see anything, but they're just instantly having sex. There's no foreplay. There's nothing. But I want to touch on this notion, right? That men are just pigs and always want sex all the time, and that men should always be ready for sex. I feel like that's a message that I've always gotten and has been quite damaging for me, because there are times where I'm not turned on, and then I'm like, that moment happens. Well, why aren't I hard? I'm a man. I should be just like instantly hard. A woman wants to sleep with me. And it's not considering all these other factors of, do I have a connection with this woman? Does she make me feel wanted? Am I feeling safe? It's like, no, you're a man. You have a penis and there's a vagina there. Like, you should be ready. And it's just simply not true. And having, I talked to having this type of conversation with a man, like in a coaching call, it's the first time they're ever hearing it. And they're like, oh, this doesn't mean that I'm less than a man? I'm like, not at all. So that's like a first moment of reprieve, that like, oh, I don't need to be hard instantly, or I'm not supposed to be a certain way. And a story that I like to tell, because it shows the difference between like a performance mindset and just like owning my sexuality, is I was in bed with a partner and we were just laying, cuddling, And then she went to touch my genitals and I was completely soft because we were just hanging out. She's like, "Why aren't you hard?" I was like, "Why would I be hard? We're not doing anything." It's like, "Do you want me to be hard?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, well then do this, this, and this, and then I'll be hard." Right? Then she gave me what I wanted and I was having a great time. Felt amazing. Then I was hard. But a man with performance anxiety would hear that first, like, "Well, why aren't you hard?" And they'd spiral. They'd be like, "Well, oh yeah, I should try to get hard." And then they try to think of something else or force themselves to get hard instead of actually just like owning where they're at and asking for what they want and need. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, and I could see how a guy would feel like there's something wrong with them in the moment by, if they're being questioned, about that, right?
Yeah, and defensive, right? Like,
Defensive.
"Oh shit, should I be hard?" Like, what do I do? And then like the panic sets in instead of just being like, "Oh yeah, I'm not. Should we do something about it?" Like in like a fun and playful way, as opposed to this like serious, crisis that you don't have an erection.
Yeah.
And something that comes up for a lot of men when they first start working for me, I'm like, "Well, did you ask for what you want and need in order to get hard?" They're like, I don't know what I want and need to get hard. So that's the starting point. Is like, well, you need to deeply connect with yourself first and understand your own body before you can feel that extreme comfort with your partner.
Do you think that we take that whole thing too seriously? Like sex and, and intimacy, foreplay and all that? Because I find that sometimes men can almost put it all on a pedestal and it becomes this big thing. And it's like, if you don't perform or if it doesn't go perfect or if, she doesn't finish or you don't finish, whatever. And it's just like the end of the world. And I'm like, I find myself often having conversations being like, guys, it's not the end of the world. Like, especially men who are married. I'm like, you're going to be with this woman for the rest of your life. Try again tomorrow, like just lighten it up in some senses. Do you see habits of that? Or like, do you think that contributes sometimes performance anxiety as well?
This is not a real statistic, but this is from my experience. Like, I think 99.9% of men are having sex in a performance mindset. That doesn't mean they have performance anxiety, but they are trying to hit a mark, and they're trying to get a job done. So that's why it feels serious. It's like, all right, I got to get my belt on and like get ready. Yeah, get my tool belt on, get in the mindset of like, all right, I got to pull it together and like make this happen. Right. And it is serious and I got to focus and it's like, that's killing intimacy, that's not presence. And I was in that state for that 15 years. So while I was experiencing performance anxiety, it wasn't all bad. Like I had good experiences too, but those good experiences were still very performative. And there were times where I'm having sex with a partner and I'm thinking of porn. I'm trying to ejaculate by going somewhere else, or I'm trying to get hard by going somewhere else. So I wasn't really connected to my body at all during sex. And that was something I learned when I finally had sex coaching. I was like, holy shit. Like I've been with women that I really loved and I still wasn't there, wasn't in the moment. And it was because I just wasn't connected to myself. And I think, again, this is a fake stat, but like most people are not connected to their bodies anymore. And there's great reasons for that, but it's an unfortunate kind of circumstance of today.
Why is that? Why do you think they're not connected?
Nobody teaches us this stuff. No one teaches us how to be connected in our breath and body when we experience pleasure. No one teaches us how to experience pleasure. It's like we fall into porn, and that's where we see what sex is supposed to be like from the professionals. And we just assume those guys are the best of the best. They have the biggest penises, they do it in the best way, and that's what we emulate. And by definition, they are performing. They're male performers, right? So that's what we emulate, and we miss out on such a big part of intimacy and connection.
Never thought about that, but they're like they're like a, like a high level football, like an athlete, or basketball or hockey, they're like a sex athlete,
They are.
Yeah. Wow.
I wouldn't want that job. Let me tell you, that's a difficult job. And we compare ourselves to those men too. And they're taking all kinds of performance enhancers to be hard for an hour at a time, whether it's injections or pills or whatever. That's like part of the criteria of being a male porn star, is that you can just stay hard forever, or you're willing to take anything to stay hard forever.
I didn't know
But
that.
that's not normal.
Yeah. I hope not. Because if that's normal, I don't want to be it, man.
No, not at all. And I don't want to have sex for hours. That's another thing. I think this, like, the tantra world can be like, oh, you can have sex for hours. And like, personally, I don't want to have sex for hours.
Hey, can I ask you something real quick? If this show has helped you out in any way, if you've gotten any value, clarity, or even just one gut check moment that's made you a better man, husband, or father, would you take 60 seconds and leave us an honest rating or review? And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a drop. And if you really want to pay it forward, share this episode with a friend. Why? Because we know that there are millions of men out there silently struggling in their marriage, in their health, and in their mindset. Men who maybe were where you were just a few steps ago, feeling tired, stuck, and searching for answers. Finding this podcast might be the thing that changes everything for them. So thank you for being part of this movement and for helping more men become the husbands and fathers their families so desperately need. Now let's get back to the show. You mentioned just a few minutes back, so many men don't even know what they want or need, or what their body wants or needs. So they don't even know what to ask for, in a situation where their wife said or their partner said, hey, how can I help, or what can I do? So how can a man find out what he needs or wants, and when it comes to this?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. And that's like a huge part of my process is I'll just break it down for you really quickly. So step one would be to reduce stress in your life. Like, understand and gain awareness of when you are completely out of your body and you're stuck in your head and you're obsessing over work or whatever, and being able to connect back to your breath. So that's just like step one, baseline. Can I regulate myself and take myself from stressed to calm? And the more I do that, the better position I am to, when I do get to intimacy, that I am at like a good baseline. Because most guys, if they aren't regulated and they're super stressed and they're high performers, they're showing up into the bedroom at like a 9 out of 10 stress level. So you add just the tiniest bit of stimulation and they're either ejaculating or they're completely shut down. So it's like, let's reduce that baseline stress level. Step two is then integrating that breath and safety and relaxation into exploring your pleasure. And this is something that most men kind of like freak out about when we first start in my program, because it's something they've never done. And it's called body mapping. And you're exploring your entire body outside of your genitals. So you're breaking this myth that pleasure equals ejaculation. It's like, whoa, okay, so now I can explore my whole body, be in my breath, and kind of feel this energy, this sexual energy building and moving. So understanding what you want and need would be through a technique like body mapping, where you're fully exploring your whole body. And guys are like, whoa, I had no idea that if I touched myself in this way, with more pressure, or, some people like really feather light touch. Some guys like scratching and pulling, and, so you start to learn, hey, this is what I like. I like to be teased, or I like to be, held, or whatever it is. But that's a really important practice to learn what you like outside of genital touch. And it's something you can do alone, but it's also something that you can do with a partner. And that's super fun, and also very confronting, to be just like butt naked in front of your partner and they're exploring your body, and you start to learn. It's like, hey, how does this feel? And you might say, I like it. Try it faster, try it softer, try it harder. And in real time with your partner, you're kind of learning what it is that you like. She's able to see you responding in a certain way. Maybe you start to get an erection, maybe not. And you can do it with her. And it also opens up this kind of communication pathway where it's like, oh, it's normal for us to ask what we like and what we don't like. And it's not something that is, off the table.
Love it. So lowering stress, and then body mapping, what you call exploring your body and what brings you pleasure outside of specifically your genitals.
Correct. And then the next step of that would be learning your arousal with genital touch. So a technique called edging, where you remove the goal of ejaculation and you're just stimulating yourself to go basically right before the point of ejaculation, and then pausing stimulation, letting your arousal go back down, and then starting back up again.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's awesome. And through that process, and body mapping as well, what we're integrating, even from, step one of stress awareness, is connection to the breath. That's going to be the thing that takes us out of our head and back into our body. That is going to increase our pleasure. That's going to make everything better. So, okay, I'm less stressed. Now I'm being touched by my wife and she's touching my chest, and I'm just relaxing into the moment. I'm not going, I hope she goes down on me. I hope she does this, or, trying to force some situation. I'm just in my body. Now the same thing with the genital stimulation. Now you're edging and you're taking these big breaths through the entire process. You get really close to the point of ejaculation and you take these huge breaths, but then let the arousal subside. You can take yourself to orgasm and actually separate orgasm from ejaculation. So you get to that peak.
What do you mean?
Yeah, this is men can have multiple orgasms as well.
Wow.
And it's actually a lot easier than you think.
Okay. Can we unpack that a little bit?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that sounds interesting.
It's a worthy pursuit, let me tell you. So as you're kind of building your arousal, even if you go to 80%, there's this moment right before ejaculation that you can feel the orgasm coming on. And it's like and you feel it, but then you can hold back the ejaculation. And again, you're just letting that arousal subside. So then slowing down your breath and then starting back up. And then you can take yourself right back up to that kind of 8 out of 10 mark. And again, have that feeling of orgasm, but you don't have the ejaculation. Now, it's not the same feeling as an ejaculation. The ejaculation, there's like crazy hormone dumps and dopamine releases that you don't get from just the orgasm portion. Mm-hmm. But you can ride these waves that extend your pleasure experience with edging. And it's incredible, you know, because you can have maybe, if you do 5 to 10 edges, half of those are going to be this really intense experience of feeling orgasm, but not ending your pleasure experience.
Yeah. While you're staying in the game longer.
Oh, yeah. And it's just building, right? So that arousal is going up and up and up. So it does get more difficult to kind of hold back the ejaculation as you go. And that's part of the training, is understanding your arousal so well that you know what's too far for you, right? So now you're making love to your wife and you're like, oh, if I go a little bit further, I'm out of the game. I'm going to ejaculate. So I need to slow down my breath. I need to slow down my movements. Maybe I need to get closer and embrace instead of going too fast and hard. So that's one of the biggest pieces of the foundation, to just know exactly your arousal so you can stay in control.
Yeah, I mean, this is brilliant, man, because you're really just, these are so interesting. When we talk about self-awareness, getting to know the self, you know, whether it's getting to know yourself emotionally, you know, through managing your anger, practicing mindfulness, or getting to know yourself enough in your diet, nutrition, training, like, you know, for example, your psychological relationship with food. You know, there's so many things that we talk about on the show. And this is just another aspect of that, getting to know yourself sexually, which I think is hugely valuable. This has been so good. I appreciate this, Alex. Just a couple more questions. One question for men who are listening, who may be like, dang, that's me, you know, or maybe sex has been a point of contention for them in their relationship, or they're just discouraged or struggling with some of the things you mentioned. What encouragement can you give them today?
Yeah, the first I would say is, like, it would be totally normal for you to experience performance anxiety in the bedroom right now in 2025. Like, I believe everything is kind of against us, not men, but like people, in terms of their connection to self, stress, sex. Everything is harder than, you know, people make it out to be. And so, you know, between 30 and 50% of men are experiencing premature ejaculation at some point in their lives. That's a lot.
Wow.
And some studies say that that's like very underreported because of the shame associated with it. So I want to say, like, it would be extremely normal for you to be experiencing performance anxiety right now. And by the way, women experience just as much performance anxiety as men. So you're not alone in feeling this way. And more often than not, when men are completely, you know, petrified of sex, their partner might be too. And they're thinking, oh, she's going to leave me. You know, if I can't fix this. And meanwhile, she's feeling the same way. She's feeling broken. She's feeling like she has no connection to her pleasure, her body. So again, like, it's a very unfortunate kind of circumstance of today, but it would be very normal. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, it's not spoken about. So like you said, your buddies aren't going to say, hey, I also had ED last night. They're going to say, you know, like I was when I was in college, I would be like, hey, I slept with so-and-so last night. It was awesome. Meanwhile, I didn't even get it up, you know? So like posturing in this way, but most people aren't having good sex. So just understanding and having compassion for yourself that, like, hey, the factors are kind of against me here, and no one really ever taught me how to have sex. So why would I be good at it?
Yeah. Wow. That's very liberating, man. And I'm so thankful you shared that, because I know there's going to be so many men who listen to this that are like, man, they probably just felt like a lot of weight lifted off their shoulders. You know, just even hearing from a professional like you. you know that this is normal. So
Yeah.
Last thing, man, where can we find you? How can we support you? So I know there's probably going to be some guys who listen to the show that might want to reach out and connect with you and hopefully take advantage of your services.
Yeah, thank you, man. So for any type of free advice, if you want to learn more about me and what I teach and kind of what we've talked about, I share everything on my YouTube channel. So if you're a guy who's not really struggling that much, you could probably get everything there and be like good to go. Things on female pleasure, things on, pursuing your own control and more pleasure in the bedroom. But, for guys who are really struggling right now and really need help, that's when coaching is really beneficial. Mm-hmm. So that's who I focus on working with. And you could learn more about me and what I offer at my website at alexgrendi.com. And if you are interested, you can book a call with me and we'll do this for an hour and see if we're the right fit together. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
I love it, man. Well, listen, Alex, thank you so much. All those links are going to be like a link to his YouTube channel and his coaching and stuff is going to be in the show notes below, whatever streaming platform you're listening on. But Alex, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. This has been such an encouraging conversation. I think you've brought a sense of normalcy to something that maybe a lot of men have felt like they're alone in, or isolated in. And so you're doing a powerful work, man. So thank you. Yeah, and thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. And I guess to kind of finalize that last point is that sex is a learned skill. So even if you feel like you're horrible at it right now, you can become amazing if you try. And it's not just by working with me. There's plenty of people out there that you can work with that can support you. So if this is something you're serious about, you can 100% get help and become incredible in bed.
That's a great way to wrap up the conversation. Okay, thank you for being on the show, Alex. Appreciate your time, brother. And let's keep in touch.
Yeah, you're so welcome, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. Remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.